We also proceeded then to express our support for President Zuma, and we warned that there's a continuation of the targeting of President Zuma, the manner in which he has been dragged in front of the courts for the last 20 years. If that continues, and especially in the last few months, we've warned that if President Zuma is going to be imprisoned, that there will be instability and unrest in South Africa. Your response indicates exactly the situation that we face ourselves with now. We've warned the National Executive Committee of the ANC and also the justices in the Constitutional Court and also the Deputy Chief Justice, Mr. Justice Zondo, that if cool heads and minds do not prevail, if President Zuma continues to be targeted, and if President Zuma is eventually sentenced to prison, that our country will be torn apart. That violence will be inevitable because of this. Come on, cut it! Now, comrades, we do not want violence. We do not want violence. We want to see our country to be a peaceful country. We want to see unity in the African National Congress and amongst our whole nation. But we've warned, and we as Umkhonto weSizwe Military Veterans Association, because of the military training of our members, have the ability to understand what happens in society. We can understand what the consequences will be of certain actions. We have warned that the consequences of imprisoning President Zuma will be dire for our nation. Now, I saw a statement from our National Executive Committee of the African National Congress this afternoon. That statement said that the NEC of the ANC that was due to sit over this weekend have been suspended, postponed, because of the concern that the NEC has about the situation that is developing in our country, and specifically also here in KwaZulu-Natal. They then made a call for peace and for a stable way in approaching this situation. I couldn't help but to think, but we warned those members of our National Executive Committee. We warned them that this situation will eventually come if the continuing targeting and the continuing political, factional approach towards President Zuma is to continue. So there can be no surprises. We are not against our National Executive Committee of the African National Congress calling for peace and stability. We are not against that at all. But it cannot be that that approach is at the same time with the intention to continue this targeting and vilification of President Zuma. Exactly. It also cannot be that this approach will continue while President Zuma is to be imprisoned.
Never.
Let us as MKMVA be unequivocally clear. We are fundamentally opposed to the arrest and imprisonment of President Zuma.
Come on, got it!
We will execute our democratic right to speak out against this because we've got the right to freedom of speech to do so. We will continue to object to this vilification of President Zuma, and we will continue to oppose President Zuma's imprisonment. And we do so on the basis of principle. President Zuma's legal rights have been undermined. What we saw in the judgment of the acting Chief Justice was not justice, but it was indeed the dictatorship of the judiciary.
Supporters of former President Jacob Zuma led protests in Durban today and at times disrupted traffic in the city. Some were on foot and others in a motorcade. Dressed in ANC regalia, they carried placards pledging their support for Zuma. Many said that they wanted to voice their dissatisfaction with Zuma's prison sentence, despite knowing that the gatherings are prohibited during a lockdown level 4. Police were at the scene where protesters gathered and tried to disperse the crowd. And most of the protesters said they were planning to travel to Nkandla in support of Zuma. The protest ended at the doors of the provincial ANC offices, where a memorandum was handed to provincial leaders. Amongst the grievances was the lack of communication by the Provincial Executive Council. And they also cited that the ANC leadership was silent on the matter, including President Cyril Ramaphosa.
As the ANC were consistent on that, whether as a premier speaking, as a premier, the chairman of the province, has been very clear in articulating that. So, but also the onus on the law enforcement agencies to play their part in ensuring compliance. We are not the law enforcement agencies as an organization. As you are aware right now, we're not aware that there was a march coming here. It was not planned, but because we heard that they are coming to the office, we had to be proactive to come and listen to what they're saying. And once we listened to them, we gave them an ear and they dispersed peacefully. So hopefully as we engage moving forward, there will be that clarity and people will comply, because it's a matter of life and death. The issue of Comrade President Zuma is a matter to deal with as we move forward to ensure that there is stability in the province. No matter how angry comrades might feel, no matter how disappointed they might feel about the decision. But the reality is right now there is a court judgment, and that court judgment as it stands, it still stands, it cannot be changed.